Welcome to the Natural History Cupboard. Come on in.
And welcome back to the Natural History Cupboard podcast, the place where the weird and wonderful parts of the natural world come together. I'm your host, Gareth, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Aaron. Aaron, say hi.
Hi.
How we doing? What have you been up to?
I've not been up to much, really. I've been very busy with work and actually outside of work. It was editing that Halloween episode.
It did take a bit longer. Yeah.
I hope you guys enjoyed it because that was a nightmare to edit.
There was some technical issues with that one. But,
yes, it's all technical issues. Loved having Phil here. That was great. And loved, like, I really enjoyed talking about the species the three of us were talking about. It was just the technical side of it. Like, the software did not want to play with me.
No.
Do
you know what it made me do? Like
regret life choices.
I actually went back and started listening back to our old episode, last year's Halloween episode.
Yeah.
Essentially, just to play with the idea of backdating episodes and making videos of pre-existing ones.
Funny you mentioned that. I was thinking that like we might need to revisit some of the older ones.
Potentially, what we might do is might make videos for our YouTube channel of, say, some of the creature features of things like that.
But to dub me over in the early ones because you can't hear me.
So yeah, but interestingly enough, it was in that episode last year that you actually talked about those. You're in the audio episode of where you were talking about how you'd made some lovely, nice little coasters with your laser engraver thing.
We'll show them then, yeah.
So yeah,
because we haven't actually shown you guys.
So a Halloween episode a whole year ago, you were talking about having made these, which I think are really nice. And if we ever get round to having like a shop, they'll definitely go on there.
There's a third and a fourth one. I did an orca one for us, and I did a red fox because Drew's favorite native animal was a red fox, and that was his last creature feature with us. So I did it, and I gave
because he was on that episode as well.
Yeah, but and he's also done high brown for that butterfly he did. I can never say that word. Fritillary. Thank you. So yeah, but his last kind of
proper one,
regular one. No, it was still proper, but his last regular one with us was the red fox. So I did us the 4. The orca is really cool, but I didn't finish it off with this polish, and I gave him the red fox one.
Oh, they're really good. So yeah, now finally a year later, a year and an episode later, you can see what they actually look like.
Yeah. But, and people can have these, can't they? They want them.
Well, yeah. If, like I say, if we ever get around to getting a shop made, then I think they'll definitely go on there. So that's, you not been up for anything else then?
No, nothing else.
I'm trying to think if I've done much. Done a bit of plant propagating this week.
Yeah, you made the Lego tree, didn't you?
Do you know what?
It does look good though.
I spent a considerable amount of time. So it was myself and my son on Saturday, and the weather was a bit meh. And I thought, I'd rather just stay in. We'll play with the Lego. I built a lovely castle, like for him to then destroy, which he then decided. He just went, Daddy, I need those bricks, the ones that I just put into the castle. I went, fine. Here's the castle. Do what you will with it. And I don't want to build a tree. So I started like playing around with Lego trees. Are always one of those things. They always look. They're either like the old classic palm tree, which had the 4 leaves coming off it, or they're brick built ones, or they're sort of like really pathetic, like almost like a stick. You know? Yeah. And I just started playing around with the idea and like built this little mock of a tree that's got like a druid underneath it and a ranger hanging out in the tree, like up in the branches and that. And of course, as I was sort of 3/4 of the way through, painstakingly making it look nice, Daddy, I need those leaves. I was like, yeah. No, you don't. You're playing with a castle. You don't need these. I'm playing with this. You play with that. So yeah, that's how playing with the Lego with my son goes. Is he finds the piece, takes it apart. I build something, he takes it apart.
Yeah.
So demolition, I suppose.
Yeah, it's a future career there, isn't there?
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely. but yeah, so that wasn't the actual plant propagation I was doing. I was propagating a whole bunch of other house plants because they're just growing wild at the moment, and sticking them in the fish tanks at work and making it as green as possible. And there's some of the roots that are coming off them now that they're in the fish tank. They're just sort of properly exploring and anchoring themselves into the bottom, which the neon tetras are loving because they've got all these bits to hide through.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's looking really nice.
Have you guys decided to go with clear water or black water for your neons?
It's clear because they're in a tank that is as you look into the room. So to make it a bit more obvious when people peer in, I would be quite happy with having it like really dark, sort of, murky water like the Amazon. But it's not going to look as good for people looking in from the outside.
Well, tetras are found in both, like we covered before. I think I prefer black water.
Yeah,
but that doesn't mean I dislike clear water. I quite like them in clear water. They do look beautiful in clear water too.
I think the trick with having clear water is having lots of plants in it,
yes,
so that they
I
can
agree.
hide.
Yeah.
And that's the route we've gone down. Is having lots of plants, lots of cover, and then they can just dart out as a little shoal. There's a group of 30 in there, so
big shoal.
It's a nice little shoal. They're all still quite small.
Is there anyone showing the tank of them?
No, it's just them at the moment.
Cool.
When they're older, we're going to put either put a plaque or a corridor in there. But because they're still really quite small at the moment, we don't want to take the risk. I know that neither of those are known for doing any sort of eating of other fish, but when you just the plaque is that big, and the corridor is that big as well, and these are still quite diddy little tetras at the moment.
Yeah, fair enough.
So when they're a bit bigger, we'll shift him over from another tank and he can go in there. We've got quite a few plex, and I mean, they get big. They will outgrow those tanks eventually, but then
plex do get.
They're so stunning when they're like full grown. We were down at a reptile shop about a month or two back, and they had a plec that was that big. I've not seen one that big for a long while.
My aunt had two that were probably about that big.
Yeah,
probably about a foot long each.
It's when they get their armor properly sort of showing on them. They're stunning fish. Really amazing.
They are, yeah.
Also really invasive in some places as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Really good as part, not the only piece of it, but as part of a cleanup crew.
Yeah.
Very good for your tank.
Yeah. Shall we head on into the news?
Let's do it.
It's the news!
Right, well, we're into this week's news. I'm going to start things off with a news source we've never used before. It's the Daily Jang, which is, as you've rightfully guessed when we had a look at the news source, it's a Pakistani-based news agency.
Yeah.
But the news is not from Pakistan. It's from Bedfordshire, right here in the UK. So a Bedfordshire safari park welcomes a rare bongo calf in a major conservation win. Woburn Safari has had a brand new male bongo born into their herd on the 16th of October, and it will basically add to the numbers of less than 100 remaining in the wild, and it will basically help to bring the numbers up and continue with greater captive breeding success. So really cool. One of my favorite hoofstock species is the bongo.
Yeah, I like bongo and Sitatunga.
Yeah,
I like those two. Cool. Well, my first article comes to us from phys.org, and that's the news that scientists discover one of the Earth's earliest animals in Australian outback. So the fossil record of Nilpena ediacra National Park, Australia, is rich with preserved biodiversity, and new studies have detailed the preservation of the period in which single-celled organisms evolved into the first complex animals. The 555 million-year-old marine animal, Questio simpsonorum, found by Scott Evans, who's an assistant professor of geology in Florida State University's Department of Earth, Ocean, and Atmospheric Science, is the earliest animal to be discovered displaying recognizable left-right asymmetry.
That's cool.
Mm.
I've been very close to the Ediacaran Hills. I've been to the Flinders Ranges.
Yeah?
But not to the Ediacaran Hills. But it's a really cool area.
Mm.
So my next one comes from Science Alert, and that is new ghost shark species discovered lurking in the deep ocean.
Good timing.
Well, yes, it's a Halloween-based one, although Halloween has come out already. So scientists in New Zealand said that they've discovered a new species of ghost shark. That doesn't mean that it's dead. It's just a specific group of what are known as chimeras, an elasmobranch that is related to sharks, but very, very different.
Yeah.
They are a bizarre group of fishes.
And they can't phase through walls.
No, they can't. But they found that it's basically found very deep down in the Pacific Ocean, more than a mile, in fact.
Wow.
Where it spends most of its time very close to the bottom. And it has been given the wonderful name, the Australasian narrow-nosed spookfish.
Spookfish.
So there you go.
That's a
that
cool
one was
name.
sent in to us a while ago, actually. Sorry, I didn't get a chance to read that one sooner. By Louise O'Leary.
Oh, cool. Thank you, Louise.
So if you have any articles you want us to read, send them in to us.
Brilliant. So my next article comes to us from Ars Technical. I think it's actually ARS Technical, but I wanted to say it that way because it's been tickling me all week. So, and that the news article is De-Extinction Company provides a progress report on thylacine efforts. I like to cover these ones when we get the chance because we've had Professor Andrew Pask on the show. We follow it mostly because Gareth has inspired me to change my opinion on thylacine de-extinction. And then Professor Andrew Pask has convinced me even further of it. So I like to cover him when I find him. But just a week before recording this, Colossal Biosciences released a progress report on a project that, as I say, we followed closely in the cupboard, and that's the thylacine resurrection. One of the coolest bits in the report includes that the project has managed to engineer a mutation into the genome of a marsupial, a marsupial stem cell, which will protect against cane toad bufotoxin. That's the poison from a cane toad, and this has actually caused the resistance in that marsupial stem cell to be boosted by a factor of over 6,000. So
wow,
so that's good, and that is proof that these de-extinction projects will help conserve extant struggling species,
quolls and all sorts of different Australian mammals. My next one comes from Animals Around the Globe, which is one that I've not heard of before, but from one extinct animal to another. Perfectly preserved prehistoric woolly rhino discovered in Russia. This is basically the news that during a gold digging expedition in the Kolyama region, I probably butchered that, Russian miners have made an incredible discovery in the permafrost. They've basically uncovered a woolly rhino in one piece that is, well, a real stunning example of this fantastic species that has unfortunately long since gone extinct. Basically being uncovered in the permafrost, unfortunately, because of, well, global warming, making it a lot easier for these things to be discovered.
Yeah.
So good in one way, bad in another.
Yeah. Negative but interesting.
Probably worth its weight in gold as well, I'd imagine. So the gold mining trip probably became a bit more
lucrative.
Yes, fossil mining trip.
Yeah. So my final article of the newsreel, it comes to us from Life Science, and that is 80-million-year-old dinosaur mini eggs unearthed at Chinese construction site are the smallest ever found and belong to never before seen T-Rex relative.
It's always a T-Rex relative, isn't
it? And it's like literally not. Don't tell them, but it's not relevant.
You mean it's a theropod?
It's not. Yes, that is exactly it. And I moaned so much about it when I saw it. a matter of days later, and these eggs would have been completely destroyed by the construction work that was going on in the vicinity, and no one would have been the wiser. But thankfully, this clutch of grape-sized eggs was discovered, apparently in the nick of time. They are thought to belong to an unknown to science theropod named Minioof.
That would be
Miniolithus.
That would be Miniolithus.
Yeah.
Ganzhauensis.
Hmm.
So that means mini
egg,
basically.
Yeah, mini egg from Guangzhou region.
Yeah.
And honestly, the term theropod is as close as you're going to get in this article to the animal being related to T-Rex. I hate to say it, it was clickbait.
Yeah, but that's still pretty cool.
It is cool, yeah.
That's still really good.
Little grape-sized eggs. And that just about wraps it up for this week's installment of the Natural History Covered newsreel. Remember, if you guys, like Louise O'Leary, have articles or topics of interest at home that you want us to cover, please send them in. You can do so in any of the normal ways, and you'll hear us cover them either there or in the main discussion, which is with Gareth today. So, Gareth, what have you got?
Well, this one, I'd actually struggled most of this week to come up with a main article, something that all of those were really good articles to have covered, but there wasn't, I don't know, there's something that just wasn't grabbing me 100% about most of them to be like the main article. Then unfortunately, and I say unfortunately, I came across this one literally this morning, actually, when I was looking at this. And that is from the Mammal Society. They've recently put out a post that is basically confirming what has come out through the IUCN as well. And that is the conservation status of the European hedgehog has unfortunately been bumped up from least concern to near threatened. Now, that means that the hedgehog that we know and love here in the UK and throughout most of Western Europe as well is, well, not doing as well as it could be.
Declining.
I mean, we've known for a long while, and I think we've probably talked on the podcast as well about how these animals have been affected by climate change, by human encroachment into wild areas through dogs and cats being able to sort of interfere with them, and through people interfering with them as well. So their numbers have been officially recognized as being worse than they certainly could be. And in the UK, we do have far less hedgehogs than other parts of Europe. The difference being a hedgehog could walk from Poland to Germany. It can't walk from France to here, without getting very, very wet.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why we're seeing several kind of population booms in ticks and stuff, because they're predators. The hedgehogs are slowly kind of
petering out.
Yeah.
Gone are the days where the biggest sort of concern for sort of hedgehog numbers in your garden would be if you're planning on having a bonfire this year, and it's particularly apt time of year for that. And I would still say it counts as well, is the whole checking of any leaves or bits and pieces for a sleeping hedgehog. Mostly for two reasons. A lot of people don't tend to do that as much anymore, have like just backyard bonfires and things. And the other reason is a lot of hedgehogs might not be asleep by this point as well. The weather is not as cold as it could be.
Yeah.
In some ways, I'm kind of happy about that because I hate the cold.
You are a reptile, aren't you?
But at the same time, if it's if it's detrimental to the natural order of things in the natural world, then my comfort comes second to that. So So sadly, the hedgehog numbers have very much decreased throughout the UK. So things that we can be doing to help hedgehogs, there is a wide variety. And there's probably a good chance if you live in a city like London or Birmingham or Liverpool or Manchester, you've probably got more hedgehogs roaming around your garden than you think. And actually areas where we are out in the country, there's probably less than we think. So it's a bit like foxes and things like that. But you can do the same sort of things right throughout wherever you live in the UK. With a good chance that they may benefit from it. First off, you can put a hole in your fence. You can find dimensions on how to do that on the internet through a project that was called Hedgehog Street. So if your neighbors are happy with you obviously cutting a hole in the fence, don't just go destroying the fence. Make sure that any ponds have got ways of them being able to pull themselves out.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I know that one from firsthand because my parents' pond in their garden, they found a hedgehog that had got in but couldn't get out. And most plastic pond liners, they've had that pond for years since I got it for them. Is they're smooth on the side, so there's no chance if they fall in of them getting back out. And they found unfortunately drowned in there. So include some sort of ramp or some sort of branch or something that animals can pull themselves out to get away. If you've got areas in your garden that you leave to go wild, just leave them. That's probably the best place for a hedgehog to be able to go and have a bit of a rest. If you've got pets like cats and dogs, obviously your garden is a place that you are going to let them out, but try and include areas where they may not be able to get to so that the wildlife has got some way of getting away from them. If you're leaving food out for hedgehogs, probably the best thing you can do is, I don't know, leave out some mealworms or something like that if you've got them, because that's part of what these guys eat. Don't do the very old classic thing of leaving a saucer of milk out. They are lactose intolerant, and that can give them all sorts of issues.
And it can attract cats.
Yes, well, that's the other thing, yeah. And even then, cats shouldn't be having it.
Nope.
It's not good for them. So generally, don't leave a saucer of milk out. Also, there used to be the old adage of leaving a saucer of beer out to drown slugs in.
I've never heard of that.
No,
I've never heard of that.
So it's a thing that you would basically put a saucer of beer out. The slugs would be attracted to the smell of the sugar in it, I guess, and drown themselves in it.
And how much of that is
you then get an alcoholic
myth?
Well, they drown in it, so I don't know how much. Either way, don't waste your beer doing that, because then the poor hedgehogs might end up eating it as well.
Inebriated hedgehogs.
Yeah,
pulling out a quill and going, "I'll have you, I'll have you."
The other issue when it comes to food, especially tins of either dog food, cat food, or anything that's got like the ring pull. If you're putting them out in the recycling, put them in a recycling box, obviously. Or if you have to just put them outside, take the ring pull bit off, because there are a good number of young hedgehogs that will smell something like cat food or dog food or whatever you've had in there, and try and cram themselves in, and they can't get back out because of the ring pull bit of the can, so they can end up being trapped in there or hurt themselves quite a bit. Just some of the other things you can do is like say, just create areas for them is probably the biggest thing, and just try and raise as much awareness of hedgehogs. These are a wonderful group of animals, so important to us, I would say, as a podcast. That was episode number 2, was the hedgehog. That was right back in the days where we couldn't hear what you were saying.
No, episode number 2 is Ambopteryx longibrachum.
Oh, okay. Sorry, it's episode number 3 then, because it was within those first couple of episodes where we ended up talking about the hedgehog. So it might be interesting to listen back to that one if you get a chance to hear our probably very poor 3rd episode of the podcast, which is, oh god, that was years ago now.
This is our 4th year.
But yeah, hedgehogs are really cool. I mean, if you get a chance to see them, they're absolutely amazing. If you know you get them in your garden, I would recommend doing what my parents-in-law do. They've got cameras set up in their garden because they get fox cubs coming in, and they get hedgehogs, and you have these weird standoffs with the hedgehogs and the foxes, and they just sort of go their separate ways and everything. If you get a chance to watch them, do it, because they're really cool animals. I think British animals tend to get overlooked, especially our mammals get overlooked an awful lot.
Yeah, I think so.
Because they're not as big and flashy, but a hedgehog in itself is a really cool creature.
Yeah.
And we don't want to see them going further on the IUCN red list. Then we want to see them go back the other way. So the more we can do for hedgehogs, the better. And there are loads of charities around the country that help with hedgehogs, that basically help build them back up and get them back out there. So if you've got free time, go and volunteer for some of those charities to help out hedgehogs, because the majority of them are just crammed full of hedgehogs. Even if they're just wildlife charities, there's a lot of hedgehogs that are there. But yeah,
that creature feature. I just had a quick gander. It's the 28th of February, 2020. 2021. Yeah.
Yeah. All the way back. 2021, I remember. Anyway, should we head on into our creature feature?
Yeah, let's do it.
It's the creature feature.
Right, well, we're into this week's creature feature. Aaron, what are we looking at?
Well, Gareth, I wonder if you could tell me what I've got in my hands.
It's a classic 1994 or 95 Mattel, or is it Kenner?
I think it was Kenner. Oh, well, it might say on the bottom. They usually say on them somewhere.
Either way, it's a Pteranodon from the original Jurassic Park toy line, of which I have the same one in slightly better condition. It's got both its wings.
Yeah.
But not to brag, but yeah.
Well, I'd like to say you're correct, but actually, this is a silly piece of plastic.
Oh, you're telling me that's not a... Hang on, I didn't say it was a real one.
No, this is actually really cool. This was always one of my favorite of the Jurassic Park toys. I assume
an animal that never featured in the original film.
No, but I rewatched The Lost World the other day, and if I could comment on its accuracy to the movies, I noticed for the first time that in The Lost World, the Pteranodon's right at the end. There's a bluish green sheen to the neck and the crest. Right. Which is what he seems to have.
Yeah, but also in those films, those Pteranodons land like a bird.
They do land like a bird.
And perch on two legs.
And yet that is still more forgivable than what they did in the next movie.
No, I prefer those Pteranodons. Even though they have teeth,
that is...
I much prefer the look of those Pteranodons.
In the name, at least like we're starting this creature feature off of a debate. But in for those of you who don't know, in Jurassic Park 3, the worst of the Jurassic films.
Sorry, the newer ones.
No, Jurassic 3 is still worse than all of them, and I don't like them.
No, I will die on that hill. That Jurassic Park 3 at least is predominantly about dinosaurs, as opposed to Dominion, which is predominantly about locusts.
Yeah,
I didn't like a giant locust film.
I didn't like
go
Dominion.
And watch Locust Park.
I will meet you at Dominion was as bad as Jurassic Park 3, but I won't say that it was worse. It was as bad. Fallen Kingdom was only slightly better. And when I say slightly better, I mean slightly better as in preferring to gouge out one of your eyes as opposed to the other. For me, there is only Jurassic Park, The Lost World, and Jurassic World.
Yeah, oh no. Well,
I find Jurassic World quite...
All right, I've come to enjoy the Indominus Rex more than I thought I would.
There's some cool things that are there. As soon as you take off like the nostalgia driven like Jurassic Park fanatic, like I found that there was actually some cool stuff to enjoy there. And people don't like it when I say this, but it's the truth. It's closer to the novel than Jurassic Park was, so there's that too.
It's debatable, but anyway, should we get back onto the
toy,
the actual focus of this?
I really like this toy. It's not accurate to the animal that we're talking about, really.
Not really in the slightest,
especially as it's missing half a wing.
Well, yeah.
But I think it's a pretty cool pop culture representation, and I thought I'd bring it in because we haven't done a pop culture corner in a long time. So he's gonna scooch on or fly over there, rather, or soar, as the case may be. We'll find out in a bit. But of all the great flying reptiles that kids will talk about, and like maybe even adults will have in like their top 3 most mentioned, you'll likely find the humble Pteranodon.
Yeah,
it's not as large and as impressive as like the dark-haired pterosaurs like Quetzalcoatlus or Hatzegopteryx.
Yeah, nor
did it have like the spectacular and interesting and weird kind of head crest structures like Nyctosaurus.
Oh, I'd have put Thalassodromius or something.
That's a good one too.
Or Tupandactylus up there,
Yeah.
having one of the more bizarre crests. But yeah, Nyctosaurus is also quite good.
There's a few of them actually. If you're not familiar with pterosaurs, definitely worth looking it up.
They're a group of animals that just went a bit nuts with the whole head display.
Sorry, that is a digestive biscuit repeating on me. It's not very digestive, is it?
No, not really.
I mean, I could be confused for a pterosaur at the moment with my head crest.
Yeah, it's not very aerodynamic, but
not at all.
You know.
But there we go. But nor really is the Pteranodon small and cute either, like the Nemicolaterus.
Is that the smallest?
It's a very small one. It's and to be honest, it's a little bit of this is important information, really. That latter species is a bit of a dubious. Is it the smallest pterosaur or was it an infant?
Baby? Yeah.
So yeah, but
give me Dimorphodon.
Dimorphodon's a good one. Yeah, Dimorphodon's a good one. But no, Pteranodon could probably be looked at if you were just glancing at it as a rather bog standard, middle of the road kind of pterosaur.
It's certainly the one that you almost always get in a bag of toy dinosaurs.
Yes, I think that's why as well. It's in every book. It's in every like kind of movie or animation.
Yeah.
From Petrie in Land Before Time to The Lost World, Jurassic Park, and everything in between. It's in every book, every toy line. Yeah, you see so much of them that has become, when someone says flying reptile or pterosaur, or even the dreaded words flying dinosaur,
or even just calling it pterodactyl.
Yes, that's the image that comes to mind, is the Pteranodon usually. So yeah, I think it's because we're more exposed to them that we tend to think of them as a bog standard average, like I said, middle of the road kind of thing. And it's not entirely fair, really. In fact, I think we absolutely should not be put off of this animal. We absolutely shouldn't make them any less interesting to us. So speaking about being exposed to them, let's have a look at how they were first exposed to us. They exposed themselves to one. You probably don't know this name. You guys have probably never heard of this name. Othniel Charles Marsh.
I mean, why were these pteranodons exposing themselves?
And that happened in 1871. He happened upon it at a dig site in Smoky Hill chalk deposits. In the Smoky Hill chalk deposits. Now, these first fossilized specimens were represented by partial wings or partial wing bones, and initially a tooth was discovered alongside it too, which Marsh initially identified as part of the same animal. Now, he assigned the species to the European genus Pterodactylus, naming it Pterodactylus oweni, though there was a naming clash which saw Marsh rename it to Pterodactylus occidentalis.
Did he name it after Owen, as in Sir Richard Owen, or
possibly? I didn't look into that.
That's fair enough.
Because I was just gonna. As you see, I'm gonna. In fact, pteranodons were named and renamed so many times because of the two individuals involved.
Shocking.
Yeah. That I just thought we'd kind of go through their history, but not bother too much looking at what their names meant. But
yeah.
On that note, Pterodactylus occidentalis, which is the name we've got to, that second name, it means western wing finger.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah. After finding more partial wing bones, that was when that second naming happened. Okay. Now, around the same time, Marsh's great nemesis, the Joker to his Batman, the Goblin to his Spider-Man, the Golem to his Smeagol, even one of the other incredibly famous or infamous kind of. I was going
to say, you're making it out that he is somehow the good guy and the other one is the bad guy here.
I know, I deliberately did that for this creature feature, but in another creature feature, I would very much be saying it the other way around. They are each other's bad guy, really. It's more like, I suppose, pitting the Joker with Ra's al Ghul. No, the Joker and the Riddler. Let's make them completely zany.
Yeah. Oh God.
And that is, of course, Edward Drinker Cope. He found his own specimens and not one to let Marsh dunk on him, Cope assigned his specimens to a larger genus of pterosaurs, probably thinking bigger means better.
Yeah.
And he published his work just 5 short days after Marsh had published his own. This was not on.
Not on. No. Not happy.
Not happy. No, Marsh was very angry. Cope was also angry, and a bitter dispute, surprise, surprise, ensued over who had the priority over describing what was quite obviously, even to the paleontologically untrained mind, the same animal. Finally, what we here in the cupboard have been calling the War of the Toothless Wing was over. By the way, we don't call it that. I literally just.
I was going to say you just called it that. Then
I just called it that then because I thought it sounded cool.
It does sound good.
But basically, Cope admitted that Marsh actually did have priority in naming the species, but he wasn't one to take the loss lying down because he stubbornly clung on to one of the species and claimed that it was somehow distinct from the rest and larger too. And this is an assertion that
bigger than yours.
Exactly. It is the Pteranodon part of their rivalry is all about who's got the bigger wing. The bigger one. Yeah, bigger wing, yeah. Yeah. That assertion, however, later scientists would completely refute. So Cope was completely undone in this case. The power of the Cope was undone. He wasn't a bad guy. I think I took it too far. He's not a bad guy. They were arch rivals, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's I suppose a better comparison, I suppose, is something
Tesla
like
to Edison.
Yeah, or Messi to Ronaldo.
That's a sports ball reference.
That's sports ball. Yeah, sports ball. I'm not so
go for like a basketball
educated.
Reference,
I was going to, but thought, mix it up.
Is it Shaq to?
No, it'd probably be more like Kobe and LeBron.
I don't know. I was going to say Michael Jordan. Did they play at the same time?
Michael Jordan played with Kobe and Shaq, but he didn't play with LeBron. Oh, didn't
anyway, let's move on.
Doesn't matter. Let's move on. We'll move on in time as well, because it wasn't until 1876 that the animal would kind of finally find its face and its name, its true name. In this year, an assistant to Marsh found the first skull. And unlike its European cousins, which is obviously the genus it was assigned to, this skull was toothless and it had a bony crest. Two very interesting things, because this was obviously two details that were making this animal extremely distinct.
Yeah.
Because up until that point, all pterosaurs had teeth.
Yep.
In terms of being discovered.
Yeah.
But that tooth found with those earlier discoveries of partial wing bones had been found to belong to something else. We'll cover that in a minute.
Ooh, I think I know what it is.
So Marsh birthed the name Pteranodon, compounding the ancient Greek words pteron, which means wing, and anodon, which means without teeth or toothless, reclassifying all North American pterodactyl species to the Pteranodon genus for now.
That's quite a big leap to make. I have one, so therefore
all. Yes, yeah. Well, that way you get more dinosaurs, and so you look like you got, again, now more is better. But Cope is going for larger, Marsh is going for more quantity. Yeah. So today, however, despite the best efforts of Cope and Marsh, they really deserve some sort of medal for effort, I suppose. We only recognize 2 species. That is Pteranodon sternbergi and Pteranodon longiceps. And we have over 1,000 specimens, though probably less than half of those specimens are complete enough and articulated enough for us to get a real good picture of what these animals look like in life. Saying that, this species has more fossilized evidence in human care than any other known pterosaur. So we do have a good idea as to what they, as far as can be had when it comes to describing these long dead creatures that no human has ever seen. For starters, we know that pteranodons were sexually dimorphic. Did you know that?
Yes.
Cool.
But that's only because, I mean, I think I've read more about Pteranodon, I think, probably in the past.
This is something that the Jurassic series has gotten wrong in every movie that they've had pteranodons involved in.
Yes, but yet again,
for two reasons.
I'll cite what I consider the Indominus defense, if you will, Your Honor. So, because they're not real dinosaurs and prehistoric creatures, they are a genetic recreation. Hence why the ones on Sauna, in two different sites on Sauna, in the Lost World and in Jurassic Park 3, are totally different.
Totally different,
because they are just recreations of, yet again, another thing. Hence why they have teeth. Hence why they're bigger and more aggressive. And then there's that whole other...
Dr. Henry Wu even says it, doesn't it? You wanted more teeth.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're not real dinosaurs, and they're not real prehistoric creatures.
They're not even dinosaurs.
No, but that's what I said. Prehistoric.
They are monsters.
Yes,
they're genetic monsters. But just for your kind of benefit at home, when you're watching The Lost World, Jurassic Park 3, Jurassic World, and any of the others, if they have them.
Oh, the Pteranodons in Jurassic World, I think, are the ugliest looking of the bunch.
I can't even remember them.
Horrendous looking things.
But they all have this big crest. Now, females didn't have it. Well, they did. They had a shorter, more rounded one. But we'll get into the differences. So, as I say, the males were larger than the females, and they sported that impressive head crest that Pteranodon is known for. We know that the females were the smaller specimens because the smaller specimens had wider pelvic canals, which is obviously how they passed the eggs that they were laying. And it just so happened that those ones with the wider pelvis canals were also the ones with the shorter, rounded crest, as opposed to the bigger crest.
Makes sense.
So these crests actually didn't just vary between the sexes. They also varied between ages, and they varied, which is probably obvious, but they also varied between the species too. So the older species, Pteranodon sternbergii, that displayed a much more vertical pointing crest, whereas the much larger species, Pteranodon longiceps, it sported a crest that was narrower, but it angled backward. Yeah.
So what is your toy?
Well, I would say that's Pteranodon longiceps.
By the looks of it, yeah.
Because the angle back, I mean, that's very far back. That's straight back from the beak.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say that is Pteranodon longiceps. Although I'm sure InGen probably have its own name for it. I would have thought. We should call them up and ask them.
Yes. Okay.
Call up a fictional
company that has also gone bust.
That's true. Yes. Yeah. And on the subject of the crest, what was the purpose of it? Do you have any ideas?
I think with most of these things, with modern day birds, I think with ceratopsid dinosaurs, with a lot of other theropod dinosaurs and hadrosaurs, it's all about sex.
Yeah.
It's all about showing off, and you basically seal the deal by saying that males and females look to have drastically different head ornamentation. It's only there for one thing in that case. It's the same as the casque on a hornbill or the feathers on a peacock.
You're absolutely correct. So far as we know, this crest, outside of display, or rather display for the purposes of something to do with mating, it was likely
but it would have created drag to a certain extent.
There was likely no use. So kind of mating related display is the primary purpose of this crest, with any secondary functions being like very, 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 very secondary functions. Like not, but as you say, it's not an aerodynamic thing, really. It does create extra drag. they'd be far better off without it being there. It's unlikely that it would have been used for anything like rutting, because I mean, what you're gonna when you've got your wings holding you up here, like what are you gonna do with that? Like, there's no reason for it being there.
I like to think that they went into caves and they put a little pen on it and they just sort of draw and go, I think I've drawn something behind me, and they go, oh yeah,
they're the ones that drew the mammoths. They just didn't know. They didn't know. Now we know, or we can draw this conclusion because the crest sizes and the shapes, they vary substantially across the ages and the sexes, meaning that they likely weren't particularly practical. So not particularly practical at all, actually. Now, males of the larger species, Pteranodon longiceps, they had a wingspan of 6.5 meters, or pushing 6.5 meters at their largest. That's 21.3 feet for you guys in the States. This supported a body length of 2.6 meters, which is about 8.5 foot.
2.6 meters long. Or
yeah,
that's pretty long.
That is quite a.
I don't know why, but in my head, and I don't think I've ever actually seen a full Pteranodon skeleton. In my head, I'm picturing it as being sort of a human-sized body, but 2.6 meters, that's considerably longer than a human. I
feel it took me by surprise because I often erroneously in my head think of them their body a little bit like a bat, like a bat's.
Yeah, a lot
bats
smaller.
Are very small. Yeah, like compared to the. So yeah, but no, that's about 2.6 meters of body, and as I say, 6.5 meter wingspan. And they would have the weight that body was that those wings would have been carrying was about 50 kilograms. So it's a very light. That's lighter than me.
That's roughly about heavy, like swan, or a large swan, or I think it's Cory buster, the largest flying birds today. So yeah,
without like embarrassing myself in front of
I'm at least 2 pteranodons.
I am nearly 2. I'm about 30-40 kilograms heavier than a pteranodon.
You also can't fly.
I can't, although I have. My family would tell you that I have tried.
The weight isn't an issue because you don't possess wings. So.
No, indeed not. But yeah, this size, these dimensions, firmly places the Pteranodon longiceps as the 8th largest pterosaur, which I didn't think
for
now, yeah. I didn't think that they would be even in the top 10.
No,
but that's my own ignorance. I think
I join you in the same thing.
A lazy ignorance, because I do know enough about them that should have been something I knew. But no, this is the 8th largest pterosaur, which I think is quite impressive, and I think that's enough to make them special. Now, flight for such a huge creature would have been a taxing affair. So they evolved a method of takeoff commonly found among their kin. They'd essentially, and I tried this on crutches, not on purpose.
And you didn't film it. This is the thing.
No, I know. It should have been filmed because it would have been good for the educational purposes of this podcast.
And also, it would have just looked funny.
I probably could have been a couple £100 richer by sending it into some place. I don't know if they still do that these days. That's a shame. But basically, they'd vault off their forelimbs, basically like as if being tossed by some reptile flinging trebuchet, and then they'd raise their wings as they cleared the ground, and then they'd force those wings back down really fast in a downward stroke to achieve that extra bump in lift right after the initial takeoff. But once aloft, it's thought that their aerial behavior was much akin to the albatross. We think that they would soar not with thermals and neither with flapping, but solely making use of the wind that comes off the seas to stay airborne for long stretches without exerting much energy at all. This energy that they saved was saved for the hunt. And their flight pattern is not where the albatross parallels end either. So cast your minds back to the start of the Pteranodon human story, and you'll recall that Marsh found the first Pteranodon specimens in the Smoky Hill chalk deposits. Do you know where that is, Gareth?
I'm going to say it's somewhere around, like, I want to say South Dakota, but that doesn't seem right because that seems far too west. I'm going to say somewhere like Wyoming or Montana, middle of America, basically, because I'm aware of where they are going to be, which is the interior seaway of North America at that point, which is that seaway that splits Appalachia and Laramidia,
well done.
Straight down the middle.
Very
and
good.
I can't remember what the third part of the continent is that's above Appalachia, but whenever you look on a map, you can never seem to find a name for it. So I assume they just class it as part of Appalachia.
Middle Earth. Was it Valinor?
Yeah.
The place to the west, yeah.
Yeah, it's in the east.
It is in the east.
So it'd be Canada. It's part of.
Are you saying Canada's Mordor?
No, it's what would be modern day Canada and part of like Massachusetts and Rhode Island and bits like that.
Right. Well, before I go into a little bit more about the parallels between Pteranodon and albatross and other seabirds too, actually, I did want to talk a little bit about what Drew's done. So the Smoky Hill chalk deposits are actually in Kansas.
Okay.
Now they're part of a bigger stretch.
I should have said Kansas. I don't know why.
They're part of a bigger stretch. Do you know what's important about pop culture corner time? What's important about Kansas? Superman's home. Well done. So yeah, the first Pteranodon was found in Kansas. Now, like I say, before we go any further into the Pteranodon itself, I'm really going to take a moment out of the creature feature to shout out Drew and his artwork. Because I mean, I try to point it out in every episode, for each of our creature features, because he does an awesome job. But he especially deserves it this week. He did a most excellent job in interpreting the Pteranodon for me, and he did this despite my outrageous and probably very annoying requests, all of which he took in his stride, creating something that honors the beauty of the species, as well as paying homage to the state that the species was discovered in.
I remember your conversation with this now.
So you were privy to the conversation, so it might not be worth asking you the next question.
No, you could ask me because I don't think I remember it, but I'm going to say it's some sort of sports team that they're coloured like.
Okay, interesting.
Because I can't actually remember what the Pteranodon picture looks like, even though I was looking at it just the other night. I can't remember the colouring that's on it.
Well, I give you it's a good guess because I talk about the Lakers a lot, but Lakers are in Los Angeles, not in Kansas. So I know
Kansas City Chiefs. That might be an American football team. I don't know.
I can't remember. I think that's NFL. I think
we're doing all the sports ball references tonight.
There's been a lot of pop culture. There's been DC, Marvel, and now sports, NFL and NBA, and football too. Anyway, I happen to know because I've had a conversation with Gareth previously that you prefer your Pteranodons to resemble like one of two seabirds, and if I remember correctly, it's the gannets.
Well, I really like just the gannet colouring, but
it is a nice colour.
I wouldn't have said necessarily for Pteranodon,
right?
It's just it looked very nice on that Path of Titans Quetzalcoatlus.
Yeah, I was about to say your Quetzalcoatlus. Have we played a Pteranodon?
There are no Pteranodon.
There's no Pteranodon.
There's Tropognathus, which is a very cool one.
That's a cool looking.
Which is basically like Ornithochirus, which is why I love it. That is one of my favorite pterosaurs. Is Ornithochirus purely because of Walking with Dinosaurs.
I like that. Is it Tapejara that they've got on there?
That's Thalassodromius.
Thalassodromius. Yeah.
But it's like Tapejara and Tupandactylus and that.
Well, I wasn't far off then because I knew that you like gannets for the Earth's Dark Kids that we've played.
Gannets are cool.
But the colors and the patterns that you'll see in this week's artwork are an amalgamation, of 4 stunning species of butterfly, all of which are native to the state of Kansas.
It's a very odd choice, but
it is
fair enough.
But like I say, I wanted to make this is a beautiful animal. Even this toy, as it's only 3 tones, and there's no patterns or markings to speak of on it. But you can see this as a wonderful animal. It would have been I think it would have been such a joy to see these like in life.
I mean, yeah,
a little bit scary, perhaps.
A little bit scary,
but yeah, I think it would. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful animal. And I wanted to do that justice, and at the same time, pay homage to the state in which it was found. We don't often pay too much attention to where they're found, so I wanted to do something that highlighted Kansas too. And Kansas has some beautiful butterflies, but I picked 4 in particular. So you'll see on the image as I talk about this, but the blue and purple of the wing membrane is of the red spotted purple butterfly and the great purple hair streak, respectively. The markings along the bottom of the wing membranes, you'll see black with some white spots. That's from the black swallowtail butterfly. And then the beak colors and the pattern of the beak hints at the eastern tiger swallowtail butterfly. And they are, like I said, 4 stunning butterfly species native to Kansas, where this stunning pterosaur was discovered. So, Drew, thank you very much. If you listen or watch this pack, thank you very much for bringing that to life, because I know, like, rather than give you reference, like, pictures and stuff, I just chucked this at you from my head.
Dump a bunch of names at him and went, do it like...
No, I showed him pictures of the butterflies, but I basically dumped what was going on in my head. I dumped on his lap, and that was it.
Fair enough.
So yeah, I also need to thank my partner Atta and our daughter, because they helped me select the butterfly species.
Oh.
Yeah, so it was a group effort. So thank you to Drew, and gracias to mi familia. Anyway, pteranodons. Pteranodons would have soared the skies above Kansas during the late Cretaceous, a time during which there was no land to speak of in this precise locale. Instead, Kansas was part of an expansive, shallow sea known as Hell's Aquarium, which I think is a wicked name.
Nigel Marvin.
This, of course, is far better known, like Gareth has already said, as the Western Interior Seaway. It's an inland sea that divided the land masses that Gareth has already spoken about as well, that make up North America today, and that is Laramidia to the west and Appalachia to the east. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, Kansas isn't the only state in the pteranodon's range, according to its fossil record. So we can also welcome Alabama, Nebraska, and as Gareth said, South Dakota and Wyoming.
I couldn't remember but I'm glad that I got 2 of them.
You got 2 of them, and they all fall in this region. Also, potentially Delaware, but the fossils there are currently under review. They're not sure if they're pteranodon as such. Now, you'll also recall that when Marsh found the first pteranodon fossils, he erroneously assigned a tooth to the beast, only for it to later be found belonging to something else. Well, that something else was a fish. So that brings us back to the seabird parallel. So this fish was called...
Can you pronounce it?
I'm not sure, because it's Latin, which means that the sounds might not be the same. Zephactinus.
Yeah.
Zephactinus.
Yeah.
I like in my notes I wrote Zephactinus, to be precise, as if I was about to say it perfectly first time. And this
its spelling, I gotta admit, is atrocious.
Yes.
But I think if you broke it down and did it phonetically like that, when you spell it Zephactinus, yeah. That's
right. But some other Latin speaking languages, they actually pronounce the X like we pronounce the CH.
Chifactinus.
Yeah, so it always confuses me a little bit as to where we're going when we use an X in different languages. But yeah, this would not be the last nor the only type of fish fossil found near where the stomach would be in the pteranodon, or indeed in the beak vicinity.
Oh, I thought you were going to say that it had been eaten by Xenactivus.
No, the Pteranodon haven't been eaten by.
Because those are big fish.
Are they really? I don't know anything about them.
Huge. They're basically they deserve a creature feature of their own. Really.
Yeah.
They are the bulldog fish of the late Cretaceous.
Okay.
Their mouth is sort of up like that. They've got a very short little bit at the front, but it opens massively. These fish are easily the length of a car.
Wow.
They would have eaten Hesperornis, which is a large penguin-sized bird that lived at the same time. They've been found with their own kind in their stomachs. I think there's a few fossils of ones that have died trying to swallow things bigger than they should have, and they're really cool.
So this is a fish that Pteranodon would have been feeding on its young.
I imagine,
not on the adults.
A youngster that it's caught,
especially if it's a tooth that was found inside it. So yeah, basically that kind of gives away the next part of the creature feature. What's become incredibly apparent is that, like the albatross, the Pteranodon had a taste for Captain Birdseye's breaded fish fingers. Only they preferred them alive and swimming wild,
without the breadcrumbs,
not breaded, and shaped very much like a fish and not a finger. Initially, Pteranodons were assumed to have glided above the water's surface, dragging the bottom jaw of their beak
like a skimmer.
Yeah, to scoop the fish up. But under closer scrutiny, the robust build of the upper body is suggestive of a more gannet-like feeding strategy, which is an awesome feeding strategy. You've all seen it, even if you don't know you've seen it. If you've watched Jurassic World, that bit where the pterosaurs all break out of the aviary, and then they're like
aviary.
They break out of the aviary, and I think they're picking people up, aren't they? Some of them,
which doesn't make sense.
It would not happen. But they're as these people fall, they're landing accidentally on purpose in the mosasaur tank.
They're all working together.
And then you see this feeding strategy, and basically these pteranodons are darting into the water like missiles, or I suppose torpedo would be more relevant, and they're coming down several feet to pick off their prey. And that's exactly what Pteranodon would have done in life, we think. I suppose that's a spoiler if you haven't watched Jurassic World. But if you haven't watched Jurassic World by this point, you're probably not interested in watching it.
You've got about 10 years.
Also, can you have spoilers in a Jurassic movie? I mean, at the end of the day, it's animals breaking out of a dino zoo. It's always the same thing. It's kind of a tradition.
Spoilers, the dinosaurs get out.
Yeah. So yeah, it's actually a really cool sequence. There's another reason why I think Jurassic World is worth watching. The little sequences like that that make it worthwhile. But anyway, this is dive feeding, and that's definitely what Tyrannosaurs. That would have been interesting to see dive feed. Spoosh. That's definitely what Pteranodons would have done. So yeah, basically that involves folding their wings back, engaging in a near vertical nosedive into the water and snapping up the fish that are just beneath the surface, and then taking off again from the water's surface, because we think that they were able to do that based on this robust body structure on the top. So yeah.
Which is always one of those things that, in my mind, a wet pterosaur is a dead pterosaur, because it's that very old view of them not being able to ever get wet.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, in that sort of sense of diving into the ocean, always being just above the ocean. You know, but yeah, that makes far more sense nowadays as to how they would have actively hunted.
Getting my head around it was more because their takeoff strategy is so similar to a lot of other pterosaurs, including some of the Asdarchids, like
quad launching.
Yeah, like I just like, how do you? But then you remember it's a 50-kilogram animal. Yeah. It's not a giraffe-sized animal. Hopping up and down on the sand.
I don't think they'd have been able to get out. No. Of the water.
So when not soaring or fishing, it's thought that pteranodons actually lived far inshore. So in rookeries, where a strong male held on to potential mates by competing and displaying against other males. Ultimately, however, such inland rookeries no longer exist. The fish feeding near the ocean surface are no longer terrorized by flying reptiles, and
they are. They're called birds.
Oh, yeah. Oh. I didn't think of that when I did my creature feature. Yes, that's very true. So you can forget that last line, guys, because birds do it. And in fact, birds do the exact feeding method that I've just spoken about. I even named a bird that does it. So yeah, let's say reword it to giant flying reptiles. There's no giant flying reptiles doing it anymore.
Pelican?
Nah, I wouldn't call that relatively large, but I wouldn't call it giant. But yeah, unfortunately, the sky no longer bears such huge animals on its zephyrs. So as the Cretaceous period was capped off 66 million years ago by the coming of the infamous Armageddon, or the Armageddon fueling asteroid, that is. The ending of the dinosaurs came, and the end of the aerial reign of the pterosaurs along with it. So we lost a lot of legendary animals in that time immediately after the asteroid strike.
Pour one out for the pterosaurs.
To you, pterosaurs. But yeah, that nicely caps off our creature feature today.
You always do see in any artwork of the asteroid impact, the moment, it's always, it's always coming in. You can always guarantee there's a few things in that picture. There'll be a T-Rex looking up at it.
Yes.
And there'll be pterosaurs, most likely pteranodons, flying past it, or, seeing it as it's coming in. So yeah, they're always that sort of very iconic pterosaur that gets at least a double feature in any sort of dinosaur or prehistoric creature book, because they'll be on their own page of like pterosaurs, and then they'll be in that end page, the obligatory, and then a rock fell on them.
Do you know the thing about the asteroid strike is that, and this is the fault of popular culture and also to an extent the fault of our books, because you can't really depict this in books so well. But for the dinosaurs, it's fine because they weren't of higher intellect, but they would have been able to see that coming for a long time. Humans, if we'd be able, if this was to happen for humans, we'd be able to see our impending doom for a while before.
Right. Okay. I mean,
dinosaurs wouldn't be able to, because they wouldn't think about it. They don't have existential problems like we do. But
how do you know? A stegosaur might have been really paranoid,
really anxious dinosaur.
It might have had real issues with, I don't know, meeting new stegosaurs.
Could have done. But well, no, it wouldn't have, because if I remember your creature feature correctly, stegosaurs are solitary.
That might have been why they're solitary.
Yeah, they're all socially anxious.
Anyway, should we go to our emails?
Yeah, let's do it.
Bing! You've got mail. Ooh, it's an email.
Right, well, we're into this week's emails. We're going to start things off with our question from last week, which those of you with a brain will certainly remember that I did not ask the following question, which was on our Facebook page. My question that I put up on the Facebook page was, what is the creepiest creature encounter that you've ever had? In the actual episode, of which we recorded quite a bit ahead of time, I'd actually forgotten what I'd said in the episode, which was, what is the spookiest creature you've ever come across? So that aside, it kind of worked. It all sort of mashed up anyway. So Aaron, would you like to give us your creepiest encounter, your sort of spookiest creature encounter that you've ever had? As I failed to ask that question.
I can't think of anything that is creepy in like I don't know, like seeing like eye shine peering out in the bush of you.
You literally said that this evening when I turned up.
But I can think of two. Okay. Both relatively short. Whilst I was in Thailand, I was staying with the Mahut, a hill tribe of Mahuts, and at one point there was a stampede of Asian water buffalo, and they came up through the ravine, and the elephants that belong and work with these Mahuts, they all start vocalizing softly.
Yeah,
the baby probably had never seen it before, and it panicked and it screamed, and I was helping with the baby's Mahut basically. And so being familiar with him and being relatively familiar with me, as much as it can be after like a couple of weeks, it ran towards us to get comfort.
Yeah.
Our backs are to this elephant, and as it runs, all you can hear is the shuffling of big feet.
Yeah.
And as it runs, it lets out this roar. And that roar, it is the T-Rex roar from Jurassic Park. And it doesn't matter how much you tell yourself that that's a movie. The hair on the back of my neck stood up, and I froze for a second before remembering there aren't any T-Rexes. And it's certainly not in Asia. So yeah, that's one. It was, like I say, not creepy, but it did make the hair on the back of my neck.
Were you
stand
wearing
up.
the brown pants that day?
I was wearing the brown pants that day. But I think what actually the second story actually might fit the question a bit better. So when we were in Malaysia, we went out on several different tracks. There was poacher tracks, prey tracks, and tiger tracks. And one time when we were doing the tiger track, we went deeper into the jungle. And we stayed, obviously we camped. We were taken out by the Batek tribal women. They took us out and they foraged on their way out there. They found us our spot where we were going to camp. They helped us set up some like traditional leaf and branch based kind of shelters, and then we set up some tents and hammocks and stuff like that, and a campfire. Anyway, they then left us and went back to the village, and then night kind of started to fall, and the tribal men turned up with spears and their blowpipes, and when our guide, the person who kind of leads the project, asked them why they'd come out, because we're supposed to be camping on our own. Basically, the tribe women on their way out of our campsite noticed a boar kill that was literally like as textbook as you could get for a tiger kill, 15 yards outside of our campsite. And instead of telling us, they went all the way back miles to the camp, to the Patek's village, and then let the men know so that they could travel miles back out to us to find us. And
we go, we're gonna go and protect the stupid white people.
We sat up like all night. Like I don't know how much fear was involved from the others, because I can't speak for the others. One of them slept through the whole night, but I sat up because I wanted to see something. I didn't want anything to happen, but I wanted to see something. And yeah, like you just like they had their blowpipes, their spears, and we all sat together and talking and stuff, and the fire going, and you're just kind of looking, is there any eye shine here? Is there any eye shine? But no, the most eventful kind of, I mean, we saw lots of invertebrates and lots of amphibians, which were awesome. We heard lar gibbons and Simon gibbons. I think they were lar gibbons, definitely Simon gibbons, I think. And there was fish and stuff, but I think the next night there wasn't any tigers that we saw or interacted with, but the next night an elephant did dump on the campsite on the way through. So yeah, that was cool. We saw like the footprints were awesome, footprints around the jungle and bear claw marks and stuff. Yeah.
It just makes me think you've been talking about the Lost World, you know. Yeah. To set up a camp, set up your base camp on a game trail, Mr. Ludlow.
Or in the middle of a Rex nest, for all I care. I've been on too many safaris with rich dentists.
Do you know,
to listen to any more bad ideas.
Every other person in that film, yeah, they're fine. Pete Postlethwaite makes that film.
Yeah. His interactions with Nick Vaughan as well. We're getting off topic. Sorry. Vince Vaughn.
Yeah.
What did I say? Nick Vaughan. Oh, that's because it's called Nick Van Owen, isn't it?
Yeah. Anyway, so yes, we will actually read the.
Sorry.
We will read the question now. So I believe you were starting us off with.
We'll start off with Pete Watts, who says, "Not creepy but scary. I was staying in Mijas in 1987. I think that's how you pronounce it. In 1987, great year I was born. So he was very lucky that year then." To have such a great nephew like me born, and had gone for an early morning run at about 5 a.m. After a few miles, I found myself running downhill through a small village when a bloody pack of semi-feral dogs decided to chase me. I don't know if it was safer to keep going or to stop. Never been that scared before or since. Never went running on holiday again.
Mm.
Yeah.
Now, did he mean that in the sense of they were covered in blood, or he was just swearing at them? Because
I need clarification on that.
I think you should find some clarification. So I've got Kelsey Watts. It's your whole family's been calling in for today. So wild boar in the south of Spain. It was a dark, hot evening. The sun had just lowered beyond the mountains. I'm adding
we're going
the voice through dramatic
story
effect.
time with Kelsey and Gareth.
We were in the valleys, working our way up the river through all sorts of vegetation. We heard a movement across a narrow stretch of water, and this hench beast came rushing out. Needless to say, we all bolted as fast as possible, fluids from both eyes and our posteriors pouring out. As our lungs pushed through their final breaths, screams, then relief, the beast took a turn. We survived, but our mentality changed. The speed and agility that boar moved at was truly majestic. He's then added to that, I suppose, more fear than creepy, actually. I mean, I felt that it had to be read in that way.
It did.
Your brother doesn't sound like that, but I felt that it had to be added in.
Yeah, the boar. Jeez.
Yeah, they are terrifying animals.
They are when they get going. Bit like the Juggernaut from X-Men. So the next one comes to us from Robin Clark, and she says, for me, it was probably when I nearly stepped on a mole cricket as I walked back to my sunbed from the pool whilst on holiday.
Oh, they're awesome little things. Really cool. Have you ever seen
I'm not familiar with a mole cricket. What is that?
It's a cricket that lives its life like a mole. It digs.
All right.
They've got
little molehills as well?
No. But they've got huge front arms that are built for just hoofing the soil out of the way. Awesome things.
Wow. Okay.
So Jen Babs has followed that one up by one evening. The hubby and I were snuggled up on the sofa, wood fire keeping us toasty. I'm loving how these
are written as stories. This is great.
These are good. The wood fire keeping us toasty and warm. A glass or two of vino, plenty of wine and wood for the night. Then this creature, the likes of which I'd never seen before, crawled out of the wood pile and across the floor with two whippets and the cat, who were not afraid of a challenge, backing away behind the sofa. This creature had shiny black armor, claws that looked like they could remove any appendage, and a tail that would strike at the slightest of threats. It was a flipping huge devil's coach horse.
I was just looking like, what is that with the tail, the abdomen curled up? But yeah,
it's a beetle. They're really cool beetle. So, blimey, it was huge. In another world, I once accidentally stabbed a slug with my stiletto heel. It was stuck there for the evening. It was an accident, though.
With a green puke face.
Yeah, we'll let you off with that. I can imagine that probably wasn't a fun thing to try and peel off a heel. But Devil's Coach Horse is really cool. Really cool beetle. In fact, the old house I used to live in, I had the exact same thing happen. We had piles of wood that we brought in, and one of these guys appeared. They're not giant, I'd like to point out. They're like that big. So this time of the year, you will find them inside. But yes, supposedly, I believe the thing goes that they get their name because you'd have a bunch of them pulling the devil's coach.
That's a small coach.
I was going to say, either the devil is tiny, which I think would be hilarious, or he has that many of them that all linked up. That would be, I mean, there's a maths problem for you. Figure out how many of them to pull an actual coach.
And at what point does how many beetles can you have before social loafing takes place? Wow. And so others slack off because there's so many doing the work. Anyway, the social psychology of a beetle. The next one comes to us from Leah Dorr, and she says, not so much an encounter, but defo creepy. Holiday, and everybody is on holiday for everyone. Yeah. Holiday in France, we stayed in a dense forest area. We took flashlights to explore at night to see what we would find. Pitch black night, only hearing crickets when you suddenly get these loud growl type noises from the bucks at every angle around you. They sound like monsters from a horror film. We got so freaked out and swiftly made our way back to the house. Does she mean bucks as in like male deer?
Yeah.
Ah.
I mean, they're pretty
Yeah,
scary when they
no,
want to be.
that is actually very timely, because right now outside of the studio, if we were to walk out there now, and perhaps I'll try and record some for
Just
for
carried
the-
everything out.
no, like an audio recording or something. The local red deer herd are in their rut right now, and you
I'll
can
say.
hear them bellowing.
Yeah.
And yes, it does sound like you know what, every year it gets me thinking. I now know why there's so many big cat in the UK
Yeah.
believers, because not so much the red deer, they sound a bit monstrous, yeah, but the roe deer, they if you were not clued up on the noises that different deer species make and cats and stuff, I could very easily see why people confuse a leopard's like chainsaw, like guttural growl or
Yeah.
roar with the bellow of a roe deer.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can, yeah, I see why that could be creepy. Yeah.
And our final one comes to us from Robert Preston. Conger eel whilst diving, don't look in holes.
Advice for life.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Anyway, swiftly moving on to this week's question, which I will definitely get correct. Which is, what's your favorite pterosaur? Based on nothing more than the fact that we've been talking Pteranodon this week. So, Aaron, what is your favorite pterosaur? Is it the Pteranodon?
Don't know if I really have one, to be honest. I think my if I could choose a top three, it would be Pteranodon in no particular order at all. Pteranodon, Quetzalcoatlus, which both I guess nowadays both of those are considered vanilla. Also Rhamphorhynchus.
Yeah,
I like Rhamphorhynchus.
Okay, I'll do you three as well.
Okay.
I'm going to go more for the European side of things, because it's, I don't know, I find our ones just as interesting, if anything. It's going to be Hatzegopteryx, basically the terror of parts of Transylvania and Romania and those islands, Hateg Island, and it's our own European version of Quetzalcoatlus, but bulkier. The murder stalk. Basically,
one of them's heavier, the other one's taller, isn't that?
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. Still, both terrifying. I'm going to say Dimorphodon, because I think
Dimorphodon is cool.
Awesome little pterosaur, and one that I can remember always liking as a kid. And then the third is Ornithochirus, purely from Walking with Dinosaurs, because that episode where you see it sort of, even though it's massively inaccurate in a lot of the information now, it
wasn't at the time though, was it?
No, it's still, the thing that sticks with me from that entire thing is the music from that episode. The music is still stuck in my head. The flying music, like the sort of music it has whilst it's flying over various different parts of the world, and then the music of it just lying there dead at the end, or sort of as it's dying. And I bet that's stuck in your head as well.
Yeah, as soon as you said it,
and if it weren't for copyright issues, we'd be playing it right now.
Yeah.
So go and watch. I don't know. It was like episode 3 of Walking with Dinosaurs, which was a brilliant TV series, and it's hard to beat. But yeah. So if you want to tell us what your favorite pterosaur is, you can do so on our Facebook page, where that is up for you to be able to add your comments. You can also get in contact with us in a variety of other ways. One way is through our email address, which is the nathistorykupboard@gmail.com, where we will where we will answer any of your questions or emails that you might send in to us. But another way that you can get involved is by joining our Patreon, which Aaron is going to tell us about now.
Yeah, that's right. So every week we like to give a little love back by shouting out the names of our wonderful Patreon supporters. Now, these are the cupboard dwellers who are kind enough to support us through a monetary contribution, for which we are grateful beyond words. And those people are, of course, Fogtober, Jen Greenhall, Connie P, Chelsea McKee, Nick Tnick, and Justin Knife. Guys, your financial contributions are actively helping us here in the Natural History Cupboard to improve things and hopefully sort a few plans for next year right now. And so, as I say, we really can't thank you enough. Now, we appreciate everything that all of our cupboard dwellers do for us, whether that's listening or watching. Remember to say watching this time. Sharing, liking, subscribing, commenting. As Gareth said, we do try and comment back, or at least react, but we try and get a little bit more efficient at that. Anything that you guys do is greatly appreciated. But if you feel we've earned it and you're considering joining our Patreon, you can find more information about them, the 2 tiers that we have, on Patreon. So just look for us and you'll find the Animal Ambassadors and the Nature Nerd tiers and all the information that we currently have on them there. But that said, once again, thank you very much.
Yeah, massive thank you to all of our Patreons there. And like Aaron said, you can get involved and help us out in a variety of other ways that don't require any financial contribution, can say the word there, which is either through liking, subscribing, just telling a friend, telling an enemy, telling a Xenactivus as it jumps out of the water to avoid your beak as it swoops away. But yeah, that is probably the best ways that you can do that. And that pretty much brings us to the end of this week's episode. So big thank you, Aaron.
Thank you very much. And thank you guys.
Yeah, really interesting, the Pteranodon there.
That was a fun one as well.
Yeah, I think we could have probably gone an awful lot longer on the merits of how Jurassic Park portrays them, but for another time. And yeah, a big thank you to you at home for joining us, and we'll see you next time here in the Natural History Cupboard. Bye.
Bye. One does not simply depict pteranodons in pop culture without either getting them incredibly wrong or putting them flying away from an asteroid.